Breakfast and brilliant ideas, coffee and conversation, we're serving up that and much more at IBJ Media's events. Join us at an upcoming event and kickstart your day with fresh ideas and new connections. Check out our event lineup and register now at ibj.com/RSVP.
I may have the title of president owner, but it really doesn't mean anything because we're all equal. The biggest thing is just learning how to trust one another, learning how to depend on one another, and understanding that if I score 50 points and nobody else scores, then we're going to lose. So we all have to count on each other and rely on each other.
That was Darrell Johnson, an Indianapolis native, talking about his leadership, ownership, and growth of his Indianapolis-based printing business, Diversity Press. And this is IBJ's The Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. So, Darrell, welcome to the Freedom Forum. I'd like the Central Indiana business community to learn a little bit more about you and Diversity Press. But before we get started, will you please tell our listeners a bit about you, your educational and professional background, and any other factors that have led to you becoming the president and chief executive officer, the CEO of Diversity Press?
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me. To start off, I went to school in college in Florida, University of South Florida, on a basketball scholarship. What led me into print was after college and after basketball, I went on to play a little bit overseas in Istanbul, Turkey. So I had to have something to supplement my income at the time. It's not the monies that it is now. I got into print. I loved it. I loved it because it's something different every day about print. You're dealing with different people. You're dealing with due dates, all the things that make it different every day. So it's not mundane. So it's exciting. And at the time, they wanted to pay me $30 an hour, and I thought that was all the money in the world, at that time. Once I realized, like all athletes, we all have that dream of going to the highest level. But once I realized that wasn't part of my journey, I just stayed in print, and then like I said, I fell in love with it. And then I looked at some of the things. I had some innovative ideas, and sometimes the people that was the owners of the company that I was working with at the time, sometimes they listened and sometimes they didn't. And sometimes I would have a great idea, and I would see that it made the company a lot of money, and then as a result, I may have at best got a gift card to Applebee's or something. And it was just about the innovative ideas, not just that, but how do you treat the people and how do you build that relationship and that family atmosphere? And that was important to me. So I struck out on my own. And some of the people that actually trained me on the machines trusted me and went on that journey with me and are still with me today.
Okay, so obviously Diversity Press is a printer or a printing company, but you were in the University of South Florida. How'd you get to the University of South Florida? Where are you from? Where you come from?
I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, born and raised. And like I said, I was on a basketball scholarship.
What high school you go to?
I went to Crispus Attucks for 2 years. So back in 1986. They closed it down for a little bit of time. So I finished at Washington High School and graduated in 1988. And I was lightly recruited, athletic, but lightly recruited. And to be honest with you, and some of the listeners may know a gentleman by the name of Hallie Bryant, played for the University of IU, played with the Harlem Globetrotters. And I literally was just playing basketball every day at the park by myself. And I saw this guy come up on a bicycle with a basket on the front of the bicycle, and that's where he kept his basketball. And he came up and started talking to me about basketball and wanted to play one-on-one. And I was like, who's this old guy want to play one-on-one with me? I'm young, I'm strong, I'm athletic. And he gave me a couple of butt whoopings and an education about how to play basketball. So I knew he was somebody, but I didn't know who he was. So I didn't know that he was training me, getting me ready for something that he believed in, something that he saw in me. One day he said, and I was living with my aunt and uncle at the time, and he said, bring your aunt and uncle to the park tomorrow. I'm going to get you a scholarship to play basketball. And I was like, yeah, okay, this guy's on a bicycle. How is this going to happen? So he pulled up the next day, had the nicest Mercedes-Benz I ever seen. And it was at the time where the phones were in the car.
Yeah.
So he literally made a call. Next thing I know, I was on a plane to Florida playing basketball.
Wow, that's impressive. So you mentioned that you went to college on a basketball scholarship, and then you played overseas. I know, obviously, you know me well enough to know that my son plays basketball also in college, and I'm a basketball mom. But I have learned, even in my legal field, how many lawyers and professionals are former athletes. And so that's something I don't think we've talked about at all on this show. So I want you to tell me what you learned during your time being a college basketball player and playing overseas that you really carry with you as you went into the printing business, and then particularly as a CEO and business owner, because I appreciate there are so many characteristics and skills that you learn in being that athlete that really apply in being in business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is that old saying, there's no I in team. And that's true. You're counting on others, not only for your success, but the team's success. So you have to quickly learn how to be a team, how to be a family. And that's on and off the court, supporting each other. We all had families that were away. You know, my family was in Indianapolis. I'm in Florida.
Right.
Sometimes my mom may have been going through something health-wise or financial, and my coach and my teammates were always there to support me. So it taught me the importance of family, camaraderie, and counting on each other. And it's the same things that I apply in business. I may have the title of president owner, but it really doesn't mean anything because we're all equal. You know, the titles just give us a role really to play on that team. But all that is equal because I can't do anything without the production team.
Right.
So that's the biggest thing is just learning how to trust one another, learning how to depend on one another, and understanding that if I score 50 points and nobody else scores, then we're going to lose. So we all have to count on each other and rely on each other.
Yeah. So I want to know when you went to college or before you went to college and before this man came into your life and inspired you to continue to play basketball and that there was a future in basketball that could also get you to college, did you have plans to go to college? What were your aspirations when you were in elementary and middle school and high school? Like before you knew that was going to be your path, what did you aspire to do? What did you dream to do? What did you think you were going to do?
Well, and like I said earlier, when you start playing sports or getting in athletics, we all think that we're going to the highest level of whatever that prospective field is. So I thought I was going to the NBA. It wasn't any doubt in my mind. You know, in my mind, I was putting up the shots. I was running around from 16th Street all the way downtown, actually around the Monument Circle and back. Like, I think that I'm putting in all the work. It's a little bit different now. You know, the athletes have personal trainers and different things of that nature. So I thought I was putting in enough work, and that was my aspiration to go to the NBA. And where I'm from, we didn't have a lot of choices. So to be honest with you and frank, it was either entertainment. I can't sing and dance, so I knew that wasn't an option. The other option was crime. I didn't want to go to jail, you know, so that wasn't an option. So it's like, okay, let me see what I can do in the athletic realm. So I picked up that basketball and was blessed enough that led to me getting a college education.
Yeah. So you are a diverse man. You own your own business. You've been an entrepreneur for how many years now?
Probably since really 2007.
Okay. Knocking on 20 years, literally. And so I would like to know, what are some of the challenges you faced in being a diverse man, not just in business, but specifically as an entrepreneur? What can employers in Indianapolis and Indiana do to make the business community a little more welcoming to diverse folks, men and women? And how have you seen that landscape change from 20 years ago to now?
That's a great question. I think really To simplify it is you have to strip it down and really look at the qualifications of a person and not looking at somebody across the room that you're relating to. Look at the qualifications, and then that opens up the opportunity for everybody to be inclusive. And I think that gets lost in the shuffle in the hiring process. And then really, to be honest, even to this day, and it's been 20 years, I'm still kind of a unicorn in my industry.
Right.
Most rooms that I'm in, it's not people that look like myself across the table. And so I've learned to understand that, and I take that as a badge of honor, but also I know that I'm held to a higher standard. So I have to knock it out the park at every meeting, at every opportunity. So that's also my way of paying it back. So the next person can have an easier time of having that opportunity to be successful and to be an entrepreneur and follow your spirit, follow your guts, your instincts, and your dreams.
What do you think being an entrepreneur has allowed you or enabled you or empowered you to do that you may or may not have been able to do in a larger corporate setting? Because for these days, so many young people, particularly, right? You did this 20 years ago when it was much harder, no question. There weren't opportunities, there weren't programs that prepared you and things that taught you. But these days, being an entrepreneur is as easily a career path as anything else you want to do. And I don't know that that was the case back in the day, particularly for people like us, where your mom and dad just wanted you to go get a good job and be good, right? It was clearly more challenging and more risky back then when you did it. So what do you, and we'll talk about more in a bit, some of the challenges that are just inherent in being an entrepreneur. Some of the things that people may or may not appreciate because it's so sexy these days, but few people talk about the challenges and the hard work and the sleepless nights and the payless days, right? Those kind of things. But before we get to that, I want to talk about some of the strengths. What has it enabled you to do as you look back on your 20-year career? What are some of the things that you are positioned to do today, influence you may have today, that you're just not convinced you would have had you taken a different path?
That's a great question. I think really to put it simply is now I feel like I'm in a position to inspire, right? And it's an organization here locally called Voices that I recently just visited. And it's a young man there that, quite honestly, he's 17 now, but has not been in school since the 8th grade. A lot of trials and tribulations that he's going through. And it actually brought me to tears because it reminded me of my life. And just talking to him, he was so inspired by my story, by my journey. We're setting up something where all the kids there can come in for a tour. And we do that with different organizations here locally, have them come in for tours. And they always ask the question, and it takes a lot to settle in. You know, we have 5 buildings on our campus, like 300,000 square feet, and they spend the first 20 minutes saying, okay, so you own all of this.
Right.
So you're the owner, right? So you're the president, right? You're the like it's like for 20 minutes because they're in disbelief because they haven't seen that before.
Right. And don't know that's a real opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in our industry and in our 5 buildings on our campus, we cover every part of a professional industry that you can almost think of. It's IT, it's production, it's design. It's anything that you can think of from a career perspective, and it's all in those walls. So that's what we try to do, is to show them that there's other opportunities and avenues that they couldn't think of. Like I mentioned earlier, it was crime, entertainment, and sports.
Right.
But it's so much more now, and even in lanes of being an entrepreneur. And that young man that I mentioned a few minutes ago, his dream was to be a reseller, a shipper, as he called it. And I said, that's a great dream. And we literally started structuring his business plan kind of on the spot, you know, like an overview.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, the biggest thing is just to be in a position to inspire and then have control of your time. So you're spending that time in the community giving back.
Part of inspiration and mentorship and sponsorship and championship requires you to get beyond yourself, get beyond your own needs and desires, and to give back. And I know you to be a person who does a lot of sponsorship and investment in the community. You mentioned Voices, but I know you to sponsor so many different organizations in the community. But I also appreciate, as an entrepreneur, that's not easy, right? Sponsorship typically takes a lot of money, or takes some giving, in some, whether it's in kind, however it happens. But you're giving. And I know many entrepreneurs who are starting, and they're not in a position to give or invest back in the community because they're still on their hustle. They're still trying to get up on equilibrium, get their business off the ground. How were you able to weather that time period? Because obviously you are successful now. To the kids' point, you own all of this. This is all yours. But there had to be a time, clearly there was a time where that wasn't all yours, and you were learning and you were grinding and you were getting up on that learning curve and managing a family and managing finances and, you know, trying to make it all make sense. Talk about some of those times and what people don't see behind the success that has happened. You and I have talked many times about people see me now and think that this all just happened overnight. This is 20 years in the making, and they haven't seen the hard work and the making strategic decisions without knowing whether they're going to absolutely pay off. You know, those kind of things that is just inherent in an entrepreneur and a business owner. Can you talk to us about that journey and what it looked like to get to this point where you can be a beacon of hope for other people?
Absolutely. And to speak on the first part of your question first, when you're not in a position maybe financially to give back, the first thing I always say, give back of your time.
Right.
Because it's no different than even with your children. Of course, do they want things, but what they really want is your time.
Right.
You know, so that was the first thing that I was always conscious of. Okay, I may not can give back financially right now, but I can give of my time, just being present. Because I know how important that is, because I never met my father. So I know how important it is to have a male role model in somebody's life.
Yes.
And just, I've taught so many young men something as simple as how to shake a hand that stays with them. And now that I see them successful into their careers, and they state back and say, hey, I remember when you taught me how to shake hands, and that means something. I stay connected with all of them. And for 14 straight years, I don't know how I did it, but I also ran a basketball league at my church. And we had kids from ages 5 to 18 every year. It was 300 kids every year through a block of time. And that's also a way to give back through basketball. They think that they're learning basketball, but we're really teaching them so many other things in life. And now to get back into some of the struggles as an entrepreneur, I always tell people, follow your dreams, follow your instincts, follow your guts, but understand that it's going to maybe take 5 to 8 years sometimes before you even see a real, what we would call a profit, right? Because you're just trying to break even. You're trying to pay your bills.
Right.
So many times in the beginning, when we had just a few employees, it's like, let's make sure that they're paid, and I'll worry about myself later. And so you got to go through those struggles and understand that it's not an overnight sensation. It is a journey. It is a commitment, and it is a passion to get where you want to be. And I always tell people, and this is crazy, and it probably drives some of my business partners crazy, I'm not in business to make money. I'm in business to serve. That was mandated by God. I'm in business to serve, to give people opportunities to watch their dreams come true and to help them be successful. And taking that approach, it allowed me the opportunity to grow without worrying about this profit or this sale, because I was concentrating on serving the community and serving people.
I really appreciate that. I think there are plenty of us, you and I are examples of that, who truly are driven by passion and by purpose and by giving back. And most of that is because we appreciate how much has been invested into us for us to be a success story and et cetera. I want to know about you as a business owner, you personally. It is a special, I appreciate the entrepreneurs and business owners because I fully appreciate, I'm just not cut and built like that. I need a little more stability. I need to know my check's going to be in the mail. You know, like I need all the things. But obviously you've been successful. So when you reflect on your own path and your own journey, what skills do you believe you possess? Skills, characteristics, things that are inherent in you, or things you learned that you believe have allowed you to be successful beyond the passion and the purpose, because I think that's absolutely impactful. On a practical day-to-day level, what is it that makes you successful?
I would say one of the key components is just being a caring individual, caring about what you're doing, caring about other people's success, other people's needs and wants, and really being committed to that. Also, I think it's important to understand that when you look at success, that's a different definition for everyone.
Right.
Because like I said, my success didn't end in a monetary way, in my opinion. I just really wanted to help. And then I wanted to be in control of my time also, because I wanted to be there for my two boys. You know, I have a 24-year-old and a 19-year-old. So being an entrepreneur allowed me to manipulate my time in a way that I couldn't work in a 9 to 5.
Right.
So it was a lot of late nights, though, because I didn't miss any doctor's appointments. I didn't miss any sporting events because it was important to me, because I remember playing basketball so many times in high school particularly and looking up in the stands and I had nobody there for me. So how can I manipulate my time to be there for my boys so they can have a different story and a different journey and
Sure.
be exposed to different things?
Absolutely. I want to know about the growth you've seen over the life of your company, and what are some successes? What are some things that you're particularly proud of? Like over the course of your time, what are things that you're particularly proud of? And then what do you foresee for, the next 3 to 5 years of your business or company?
Great questions. So first and foremost, every job that comes in is a success, right? Because I remember if I sold 5,000 in a year, I was ecstatic because it was 0 to 5,000, then 5,000 to 10. So each brick that was laid upon built that foundation. So, and I'm appreciative of that. And I treat everybody the same way. We literally have clients that sometimes just spend $50 a year, but they don't know they're treated the same way as one of our larger client partners. And I think one of the biggest things that I found that I allow myself to take a moment to breathe was when we established our partnership with the Indianapolis Colts. And I saw our logo and information go across that NFL ticker. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm super shy and I'm super emotional. It don't take much for me to shed a tear. And that was one of the times I allowed myself to shed a tear. I was with my partners, I was with my family, and we were sitting there, and I was like, and I knew it was coming, but I didn't really know when. And when I saw that ticker go across, that logo go across that ticker in the NFL stadium, and we think of the Indianapolis Colts as our team, which they are.
Right.
But they're global.
That's right.
So it's a global brand.
Just came back from Germany.
Absolutely. So now our brand is associated with something global. And that was like a watershed moment for me personally.
That's pretty impressive, though. I mean, that has to be. I understand the tears, because to think you went from literally building this to now you're in a national, international stadium, just the number of people there. I mean, I remember when I originally met you and learned about your business, got to know you, and then saw your logo on the Colts ticker, on the game bridge, the Pacer, like, oh my goodness, he is really, really doing his thing. You had to be proud, because I was proud of you, and I didn't even know you as well then as I know you now. So I can fully appreciate what a important milestone that was in the growth of the company. Now it's time for a break.
Get caught up on the state's top business news every business day with the Inside Indiana Business Radio On Demand podcast. Available now at InsideIndianaBusiness.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're back with Darrell Johnson of Diversity Press on this 52nd episode of the Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. What do you foresee for the business? And I just want to highlight one of the things I really appreciate about your business is it is applicable to every business in particular. I am in professional legal services. Everybody doesn't need a lawyer. Almost all businesses need some type of printing material, some type of promotional material, What I really appreciate about your business is everybody is a possible client in a way that is just not the case for me. And so when I'm seeing you networking and meeting people, truly anyone could be a client of yours. And I know the expansiveness of your clientele. So talk about that and how you have grown the clientele you've developed over these last 20 years to be what it is today, and how you foresee that growing and expanding over the course of time.
The number one thing for us at Diversity Press, we're all about building relationships. We don't want anything to feel transactional. Like, we really trying to help you grow your business, grow your brand. And what does that look like? What do you need from us to help you be successful? And that's the approach that we take. It doesn't become transactional. It becomes everybody is a family or orientated. I don't even like to say client. We like to say partnerships. We like to work with people that want to be partners with Diversity Press. And again, we just think that is very important in the process. And then in growth, all growth is not good growth. You have to have what we call strategic growth.
Right.
And we like to just simply do what we say we're going to do. So if it's something that's not a fit, we'll let somebody know. Maybe it'll be a fit in a couple of years. Like when we started working with Staples, another one of our partners, we had to grow into that relationship. And they were patient with us and they grew with us. So now we have the ability to take on, like I spoke about earlier, now on a global scale. Not just regional, not just through the United States, but that's with some good strategic planning and growing. And to be honest, some luck is involved in that. Right place, right time.
Right.
And it's obviously the most important thing, being blessed. Being blessed and prepared for your opportunity. Because in life, we're all going to get an opportunity to do something, but are we going to be ready? So to be ready, you have to stay ready. I tell my kids that all the time. You know, I had a football player, now I have a taekwondo athlete. You have to be ready because you never know when it's your time or your opportunity. So you have to be prepared. So that's kind of how we like to plan for the future. We call it strategic planning to make sure that we're in position for that growth when it happens.
Yeah, I fully appreciate that. I also want you to talk about, you've mentioned a couple partners, but again, I've seen the diversity of your business partners. I've seen the diversity of the materials you provide. You know, when I think printing, and particularly before I visited your facility, I thought print, like print material. What I appreciate is you all do so much more than that. You do wraps for cars. You do print materials. You do promotional items. You do client gifts. You do so many different things. First, I want to know, was that always in the plan? Or was that a function of growth of the business and just the expansiveness in the business?
Yeah, that was a great question again. So that was absolutely, it was some strategic planning in that. Really kind of in the early 2000s, a lot of people thought print was going to die out. So what me and my partners got together and said, you know what, let's just create a good old-fashioned one-stop shop for print, branding, marketing. So you don't have to have, when you're, like, for an example, if you planning for an event, in the past, or most people even now, they may have 10, 15 vendors.
Right.
Now you can come to us and have all your needs met. You're going to have one rep, one team that's controlling all of your stuff. So that way you can get back to doing what the company hired you to do. They didn't hire you to go out and buy a promo. They didn't hire you to go out and buy print or whatever you may need. We will manage that for you.
Right.
And that's what we, I don't even like to sell. That's what we offer, because we're not in the business of selling. We changed our model. We're in the business of offering solutions. So we have a multitude of solutions for you so you can do what you were paid to do. Like if you need legal pads or whatever you need, you don't have time to be running around.
Right.
You know, you're trying to do what you're paid to do, and we'll help manage all that business and expectation for you.
Yeah. I can appreciate, particularly a person who, bills time. I can appreciate how efficient and effective that is for other business owners or other business people. Let's talk about diversity. So the name of your company is Diversity Press, and 20 years ago, I assume that was the name that you started with, and that's the name it is today. Diversity has become a fairly controversial word these days. So when you consider the brand, the marketing opportunities, the implications of that word in your business name, what have you seen? What has been your experience? And what was your original intention when you started and decided the name of your business was going to be Diversity Press? You certainly couldn't imagine 20 years later, this is the environment that we would be in. What did you mean by that? What do you mean by that? What does Diversity Press stand for?
That name is a twofold name. So one, obviously, I was intentional about using the word diversity. We're all diverse. So I was very intentional about using that word. And then we're also about diverse capabilities. So it was a twofold in choosing that name. And then we've had some inquiry about possibly changing our names, and we don't subscribe to that. We're not interested in that because it was built, that name was thought of on a foundation of being inclusive to everybody and being diverse. You've visited our location. We have a multitude of different people working there from all across the country, all different nationalities, different cultural backgrounds, and we all work together as a family. So that word and the name Diversity Press is important to us, and we not just by name, but by action. The way our hiring processes are, the way we treat people, and the way that we work with any and everyone.
And not just, to your point, not just the people who work with you and for you are diverse, your clientele or your partners are every kind of organization, from nonprofits to for-profits, from foundations to the NFL. Like, you truly represent and work with all kinds of organizations with all kinds of different missions. I mean, one of the things I appreciated in touring your facility is you work a lot with mission-based organizations that are doing really good work for all kind of people and all providing solutions for really unmet need, whatever that may be, right? And so that too is a major function of diversity, in that your partners, not just your workers or the people who work with you and for you, but your partners are so diverse, and they're national, international, all over the place, geographic diversity, like all over the country and I think that really speaks to why diversity is so important. I think you're a great example of how it can be utilized to really exemplify inclusiveness, meaning to exactly what you said. We work with all people. It's very inclusive.
Absolutely. And it's all, like I mentioned earlier, we're here to serve and we're here to build relationships. And that's what Diversity Press is all about. The business and all that other stuff, it takes care of itself if your foundation is structured. That's the first thing I tell people when they ask me, young entrepreneurs, and they talk about, the first thing they start talking about is money. That's important, but make sure, what's your mission statement?
Right.
Why are you doing what you're doing? Those are the things that your company and the foundation is going to be built on, not making money.
Right.
Because it's in the beginning. Like, if you're not committed, like I said, to 5 to 8 years, sometimes 10 years.
Yeah.
If you're not committed to business and the mission statement, you'll never make money anyway. So you have to understand what your focus is And ours is relationship, serving people, serving the community.
Yeah. So from a personal level, how do you demonstrate your own authenticity? You're the boss, you're the worker bee. Like I've seen you, you're in there, but you work too. You're not just walking around supervising people. How do you continue to maintain your authenticity? Maintain the level of authentic influence. You've talked multiple times about the fact that your company and the people who work with you and for you are a family. How do you continue to maintain that type of culture or even establish that culture, particularly when times get a little more challenging, when you're facing a little more pushback or downturn in business, right? I mean, every business ebbs and flows. There are good times and challenging times, and the ability to withstand that and continue building the 20-year legacy is your ability to keep the faith, keep the path, stay on mission, which is why you just talked about how important the mission is. How have you personally been able to weather the storms, keep on task, keep the mission in mind, and continue to move forward in your most authentic way as a diverse entrepreneur and business owner?
And this may be controversial to some, but not to me. The first key component for me is prayer.
Yeah.
I start every day with prayer. I end every day with prayer. And a lot of times in the middle, I'm praying because I want to make sure that the words that come out of my mouth is authentic to me because I have to sleep at night.
Right.
So it's important to me what my boys think about me. How do they see me? How do they see me interact with other individuals? So in order, you have to walk the talk. You know, you can't just talk it. You have to walk it. You have to demonstrate it. And we're all about, like I said earlier, so it's about family and family growth within. You may have somebody start with us in a temporary capacity, but now maybe they a supervisor because we grow within, because we believe in loyalty, commitment to growth within. And that's how you really have a family atmosphere. Because my son now works over in our fulfillment center. So that's important. We have a lot of people that are family oriented that come in and they grow up through the company, through the business. And it's all about how we treat one another to make sure one another is successful. And we all know the mandate is to make sure that our partners are happy, that they're served. We have some things, and it's not perfect. So I'm not going to sit here and say that every job, every situation works out perfect. But we make sure that at the end of the day, the product has the quality that was needed and it was delivered on time, no matter what we have to go through to get there. I can tell you how many times, even to this day, I put stuff in my truck, hop in my truck, and I deliver it myself. All of our guys may have been out that day, and all of us are like that. Even my business partners, they do the same thing because we're all committed to serving our partners.
Yeah. As you reflect on as an Indianapolis native, as you reflect on your abilities and opportunity to build a family here, build a business here, particularly in some of the political climate that we're experiencing now, it's I know personally it's kind of hard for some businesses to recruit folks to Indiana. And so you have the opportunity to be homegrown, to continue investing and building here in your hometown, your home city. What do you think, A, what does that mean to you personally? And B, what do you think Indianapolis as a city and a community can continue to do to make sure that their homegrown talent stays in Indianapolis and continues to invest here rather than go other places? And also, how can we continue to recruit diverse talent and all talent to Indianapolis to continue to grow our business community, our technical community, et cetera?
Some of that is like boots on the ground type work. I like to call it grassroots. You see it in sports. You have an athlete. It's hard to keep our athletes here in town because it looks shinier over there. So we have to do a better job, even in business and sports, all throughout Indianapolis, all throughout Indiana, is pouring into our grassroots programs. So whether it's in sports, whether it's in business, and that's a lot of individuals that we're having conversation about, just like how we have grassroots sports, how do we have grassroots business opportunity where we're teaching the youth at a young age to be engaged, not only in sports, but business. And what does that look like? So we're having a lot of talks internally, and I'm going to be pulling on you a little bit as these people that I know that are committed to Indianapolis and the growth, to how do we, and just this podcast, the stuff that you're doing now, letting people know that people like myself exist. All this is important and part of that grassroots program to let us know that it is people that are homegrown, that are successful. And what does that story look like? And how can we make it easier for the next person?
Yeah. It really is extremely important, because if they don't see examples of success in whatever field or industry or opportunity they desire, they absolutely will chase it someplace else. And so as we begin to wrap up, I'd also like to ask you, over the course of time, again, we've talked about the fact that the Indianapolis business community has shifted. Certainly, it is much easier, I believe, easier for diverse people in Indianapolis to be successful today. But like every community, we're not where we should be. There are still too many challenges for very skilled, intelligent, successful people who, for whatever reason, don't feel like they would be successful here. Or I still hear too many stories of people who've been here, who've had enough experiences that chase them away and convinces them they just can't win here. What can we as a business community, as leaders, as business leaders and community leaders, continue to do to double down on the fact that, again, our homegrown talent, as much as we can, needs to stay, and then also recruit talented, qualified, diverse people to also come here and set up shop, lay roots, lay ground, so that, in another 20 years, there's not just Diversity Press, but there's another 20 diverse businesses who've seen success in the Indianapolis business community.
And first of all, I want to give you kudos for what you're doing here, on this podcast, because I think that leads into that question that you just asked. It's people like you don't have to do this podcast. You can just go out and represent your clients, make a living, and be successful. But you're putting your name and your brand on the line by letting people know that it's other successful people here in Indianapolis. So I just give you just immense kudos. So proud of you and what you're doing, and then having people like myself come in here. And this is where it continues. This is where it starts, doing stuff like this. Just knowing you, I've been introduced to so many different people at networking events and other things that we've attended together. And that's what it takes for us all to unify, to be strong together. Because like I said, what's that old saying? We're together and it makes a fist, or whatever that saying is. And that's true. It's strength in numbers. So when people see people being successful that looks like themselves, then they have the boldness, the courage, and the inspiration to do it. So again, keep doing what you're doing, bringing people in here that I never even knew. It's still people here, and I'm 20 years in, that's still just now hearing about Diversity Press and some of the people that we work with. And it's because of people like you that the name is continuing to ring out and be known. And it's the same way with other people, other entrepreneurs. And I know for a fact you work with entrepreneurs of all stages of life, that it's very important for you to make sure that young entrepreneurs are represented properly legally. And that's important. That's sometimes the last thing that people think of. That wasn't on my mind 20 years ago. So keep doing what you're doing and keep touching these young businesses and these young entrepreneurs, because that's where it starts.
Yeah.
In these type of forums.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. You touched on something, and I want to end on this question because I know it's a real thing. You mentioned the networking, and you talk to me all the time and tell me how shy you are and how you're so being in large crowds and talking to people, et cetera, is so out of your comfort zone. And the truth of the matter is, I think there's a lot of people like that. Everybody is not type A, outgoing like me, walk into a room or do whatever. But and success and leadership comes in all forms and fashion. That is diversity in and of itself, whether you're an introvert or extrovert or you're comfortable in those type of settings. But I want you to speak on how necessary, if you believe it's necessary, networking, getting out of your comfort zone, being willing to meet people who are different than you or from different backgrounds or different geographic areas or different experiences or traditions. Because again, in my mind, that all represents diversity. That all represents why diversity is so important. It's not just black, white, male, female. Diversity encompasses so many differences. And for me personally, that is part of the beauty of my life, that I have so many different people who I engage with that are from so many different backgrounds and experiences that really make my life more enriched. But for somebody like you who is challenged by walking into a huge room of people who you don't know, but also appreciate that's part of your business, that's part of growing your business. How have you gotten comfortable with doing more of that person to person, one-on-one, meeting folks, getting to know folks, when that's not really your inherent nature?
That's a great question. And the number one thing is I do it to inspire, like I mentioned earlier, because I know it's important for young people that look like me to see me and to hear my story, to see my journey. And it's also important because I have 2 young men that I had to raise. So I didn't want them to be introverted or shy. My youngest son, Davin, just spoke at his Taekwondo banquet Sunday. I said, "Hey, son, you need me to take a look at your speech or anything?" "No, I got it, Dad." I was kind of worried. I'm like, "You sure?" And he's like, "No, I got it." And his inflection of voice and what he wrote, it was so beautiful. It was so eloquent. Did I shed a tear? Yeah. A little tear came out. I wiped it off. And afterwards, it was so many younger, he's 19, it was so many younger Taekwondo athletes running up to him, almost asking for his autograph.
Yeah.
It was parents asking him to email or text his speech because they were so inspired by it. So that's why I'm learning and continue to learn to get out of my comfort zone because he's seen me speak at church or he's seen me speak in other venues or other areas. And that's why I do it, to get out of my comfort zone. Because if it was just left up to me, I would just be in front of my laptop all day. But I know it's important for other people to see people like me.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And I also appreciate you obliging me and coming out of your comfort zone to come speak to us today. Tell us about Diversity Press, the growth, particularly as an Indianapolis-based company. It's really inspiring. And I agree with you. It is important for younger folks, other entrepreneurs to know that you can be successful here. There are no excuses. And that's part of why I appreciate you and knowing your business. Are there challenges? Absolutely. Are there ups and downs? For sure. But there are no excuses as to why success can't be yours if you believe it to be. And I thank you for sharing your story today, for being here, and for continuing to invest and be a major pillar in our community. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you again to Darrell Johnson, and thanks to you for joining us on this 52nd episode of IBJ's The Freedom Forum with Angela B. Freeman. Please come back next month for another conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Central Indiana business community.
Curious about what's shaping law in Indiana? From court reforms and NIL rights to mental health courts and energy commissions, the Indiana Lawyer Podcast breaks down the biggest legal issues of our time. I'm your host, reporter Maura Johnson. Join me every other week for your insider guide to what matters in law and why it impacts you. Subscribe now in your favorite podcast app or at ibjpodcasts.com.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media Podcast Network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.